Antibiotic use is also a common root cause for SIBO because it has caused a dysbiosis and an imbalance in there, right? And sets you up for bullies on the playground, like we like to say. The typical round is for 2 weeks. You may feel better for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, maybe even a few months if you're lucky. But it's likely that it's going to come back. A good 60 to 70% of folks who do SIBO treatment this way through their doctors with rifaximin for 2 weeks will have a relapse of SIBO in the next year or so.
Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey, yo, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Today I have on the show my friend Jen Yundt Coles, and Jen is an AFMC certified functional medicine practitioner, a certified integrative nutrition health coach, and a certified acupressure practitioner. And not only is she a SIBO survivor, but she's highly trained expert, and she helps people support people on their own journey through SIBO. And if you don't know what SIBO is, I'm going to wait and let Jen explain it to you. She's going to tell us all about SIBO, the common symptoms of SIBO, the root causes, how conventional medicine is kind of failing us, but those who are struggling with SIBO. She talks a lot about her own journey and how that led her down the path that she's on right now. She is so knowledgeable on this, y'all. She knows a lot, and she is going to break down everything we need to know about SIBO. So if you or someone in your life is struggling with this and just with gut health in general, this is the episode for you. You're in the right place. So let's jump in. All right, y'all, let's jump in. I'm here with Jen, and I'm so excited to have Jen on. Jen is a friend that we met in a mastermind together, and so we've done some work together, and I love what she does, and she's so knowledgeable about everything we're going to talk about today. We're talking all things SIBO, which she'll tell you what that is. So thanks so much for joining today, Jen.
Yeah, hey Hope. Thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And y'all bear with us because I told her, like, of course, the day I need to interview, my voice sounds like a 14-year-old boy going through puberty. So I'm a horse. And then she's got like a tree trimmer guy like out front. So if we have background noise or like I'm raspy coffee, yeah, we're just gonna make it work. It's fine. It's real life. It's fine. Okay. So Jen, I want to start with, as I want to get into kind of like your journey through all this and everything, but if you can just give the listeners like a brief overview and then like a good explanation of what is SIBO.
Yeah, sure. So great place to start. SIBO stands for, it's SIBO. It stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So essentially, in your large colon, you have bacteria, and that's where it's supposed to be. And mostly your small intestine is supposed to be, your processing center. And that's where you're absorbing and, further breaking down foods and absorbing your nutrients. But you're not supposed to have a whole array of bacteria in there, and certainly not an overgrowth of bacteria, because that can impair your digestion and your absorption of key nutrients for your health, right? Yeah, I might go on a tangent here. So if I'm going too long,
I like tangents. I like tangents. Do it.
Yeah. So SIBO can be caused by a number of things. About a food poisoning is very common. Can cause a dysbiosis in the small intestines, and things like leaky valves. So perhaps you have low levels of magnesium in your body that control smooth muscle contractions and movement. And that can affect your valves between, like, for instance, the small intestine, the large intestines, and some of that bacteria can migrate up into the small intestines where you don't want it. Inflammation, if you have other inflammation in the body, can travel around, of course, stress and things like that. Hypothyroid is a big reason for SIBO and chronic SIBO relapse. So there is a number of causes. Everyone is highly unique, of course. And so that's part of what we do in functional medicine, right? We kind of dive deeper and go upstream and see what could be the cause. And common symptoms, some of your audience might be familiar with some of these things. So if you experience bloating or discomfort in that area in the lower abdomen, kind of underneath the navel, bloating and gas in that section, maybe an hour to 3 hours after you've eaten, that is usually a key sign. Again, gas and bloating and distension. We can develop more food sensitivities as well with SIBO. It can cause diarrhea or constipation or both. So you can be fluctuating back and forth. It can show up like things such as heartburn, brain fog. You could have trouble sleeping. It doesn't even have to be digestive. In my practice, I'll often see people who come in and say, tested positive for SIBO. I have no digestive symptoms, but I get these migraines. So it can
Mm,
show up in different ways, right? Like
mhm.
body pain or fibromyalgia or bladder pain and on and on. The list is quite extensive. So yeah, that's been my experience so far in practice and in my personal life. It can affect your mental health as well, cause anxiety and depression, and the list goes on. So I
Mhm.
hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of maybe how you can get it and what it might look like.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that was a great explanation. So what was your journey through SIBO? Did you have the symptoms and you went to the doctor? Like how did that play out for you?
Yeah, so I tell this story to my clients a lot. I was the kid in the nurse's office all the time, back in the day when they had nurses'
Yeah,
offices,
yeah.
right? I always needed the heating pad. I was constipated my entire childhood. It was terrible.
Mm,
And my mom would always give me that gross Metamucil and make me
yes.
mix my orange juice,
Yes.
right? And at the time, we didn't know there was a such thing as like lactose intolerance or gluten intolerance, right? And I lived in the South and we ate all the fried foods and all the cheese and all the things, right? Well, I didn't realize maybe I had you know, a, an intolerance to dairy until I got to college when I went to a clinic there. And the guy working in the clinic was like, "Well, have you tried not eating, a pint of Ben and Cherries every night with your boyfriend? Because that might help, right?" And
Uh,
then he gave me like a bottle of Mylanta to carry around in my backpack. Like he didn't really help me, right?
right,
So
right.
I just struggled so much with constipation and started developing food sensitivities and some kind of mood imbalances, having lots of anxiety and things like that is kind of how it first manifested. And then I ended up getting in a car accident, and that led me down the path of alternative medicine because I was looking for pain relief as, alternatives to medication. And I started learning about digestion and how everything is super connected in the body, right? It's not compartmentalized like conventional medicine would have you believe sometimes. And so that kind of led me down that whole rabbit hole and learning about alternatives. And at that time, I also had a roommate who was diagnosed as celiac. So I
Mm,
started learning more about that. I found out I was actually having an antibody reaction to a different wheat protein. So, you're just learning. But meanwhile, I'm getting married and having kids. I had two babies back to back. I was in another car accident. And by the way,
oh
none of
my
these were my
gosh.
fault. So,
For the
right.
record.
And
Mm,
just a lot of things going on in my world. Lots of high stress, relationship issues, and just kind of feeling chronically ill. And I kind of have this personality where I'm a go-getter. I've had several businesses in my lifetime, and I'm constantly wanting to try new things, learn new things, do new things. And I think that drive also kind of drove my anxiety, which was feeding into my gut dysbiosis or dysfunction. And eventually, this is kind of the pinnacle of where I'm getting to, right? The whole thing here is I ended up with broken heart syndrome because my body was
mm,
so stressed out. And went to the doctor, and of course they're like, well, you need to not be so, you need to take a vacation, right?
mhm,
Well, that's
mhm.
not really helpful. That's not a practical thing to tell a busy mom, right?
Right. Just leave, get out of town. Like, okay.
Yeah. So that was my first entrance into functional medicine, actually. I found a functional medicine practitioner here, and she was very helpful. She's like, hey, you know what? After this heart thing, my body actually switched and I started having chronic diarrhea.
Mm.
And I became, nutrient depleted because of it. And I couldn't leave the house. It was affecting my entire life. I
Oh
had to quit my
man.
business, all the things. And she gave me some herbals and it helped for about 2 weeks. And then I switched to a different type of SIBO, the third type, which is hydrogen sulfide, which is now actually my specialty within the realm of SIBO. And it's less studied, and we can get into that later if it comes up. But my point is, eventually she was just like, I don't know how to help you, Jen. Here's an antidepressant. And I went down all of that, going through gastroenterologists and on, and no one could figure out how to help me. And I was really at my wits end. I was laying in bed. I was bedridden. I couldn't go out with my kids to their soccer games. I didn't want to travel. It really took a toll on my life. And so that's what led me to going back to school, going down all the research rabbit holes. I'm kind of a geek brain that way, where I love to, look at all the science and everything and experiment. And that's basically how I got to where I am now. I rebranded my coaching business to be the SIBO coach, because word got out that I was addressing that in my practice. And then I was also eventually invited to sit on an international panel of SIBO treating doctors and MDs throughout the world, because they said, hey, Jen, we know you're a coach, but we heard you were doing something different. So we'd love for you to come and, talk to us about your case studies, and we share back and forth. And it's a great experience. So that was a long story, but basically that's how I have gotten to where I am now.
That's amazing. What a journey. So much of your story, no, I didn't go through SIBO, but so much of your journey was similar to mine, because I was the same. I was the kid who always had stomach issues growing up and drank my Lanta like it was going out of style, and didn't figure out until it was like, high school, college, that I was lactose intolerant, like the whole thing. And it was like, oh, yeah. So and then it was, I'm using air quote, the diagnosis was IBS. It's like, they don't know what it is. Like, oh, you have IBS. So no, I felt so much of your story. What a journey though. And why wouldn't you specialize in SIBO? You've experienced all of that and being able to work there. I do want to ask you, because you did mention it, because there are different types of SIBO, and like you were saying, you specialize in a specific type. So you mentioned kind of the symptoms and stuff for, just kind of generally speaking. So what are the difference between the different types? And can you feel as far as symptomology, how those are different within people? What does that look like?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And I'll preface my explanation with, everyone is highly unique. So, not everyone fits in a box, right? But I would say typically what we see for a hydrogen positive SIBO, which tends to be more common after a bout of food poisoning, by the way, looks like diarrhea. So having said that, though, I do have people who have high hydrogen that are constipated. So, but the majority of folks will have diarrhea and really uncomfortable bloating. And then the second kind is, the second type is methane, and it's actually not a bacteria. It's considered an archaea, and it can be in the large intestines or the small intestines, same with hydrogen. And interestingly, there are entire populations in the world that have methane producing bacteria, but unless it's causing constipation, the medical community does not consider it a methanogen overgrowth. And it actually has a different name now. It's called IMO or EMO. It's intestinal methanogen overgrowth. So it's kind of like a subset of SIBO. And that one usually typically causes constipation. The higher the gas level definitely correlates with how much constipation you have.
Right.
The third type is hydrogen sulfide, which is being studied more, but it's a little behind the other two. And hydrogen sulfide is quite toxic to the body, right? We know that we can have natural, normal levels of it, and it can actually be supportive to someone who might have heart issues. Actually, there's more science coming out showing that they use it as a treatment now, which is kind of blowing my mind a little bit, because I think to myself, wow, I had this heart event and then I ended up with hydrogen sulfide. Maybe that was my body's way to protect me, right? So we think about things like that. It's my personal theory. This isn't published anywhere that I know of. But when hydrogen sulfide is elevated in the small intestines, a true SIBO, dynamic, it can cause diarrhea and lots of gurgling. But when it's more concentrated in the large bowel, I will see often folks have debilitating constipation. It's like it turns off your migrating motor complex altogether, and it really slows down the system. And now it can, alternate back and forth, of course. But with hydrogen sulfide, we see an interesting subset of symptoms that don't really correlate with the other two. And that's things like rashes, pretty bad fibromyalgia type symptoms, body aches, bladder irritation or vulvodynia for women, brain fog. It can feel like you feel toxic. Your body, like, you can't get a deep breath. You can't think straight. You might have tingling in your, extremities, like your fingers and toes. So it's so important to address. You don't want that hanging out in your body, especially when it gets systemic like that.
Right.
And it can cause lots of damage to your colon, for instance, set you up for possible cancer and things like that. So we have to be careful, and we have to make sure we're addressing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of addressing, so I've worked with clients before where they've been through just like bouts and bouts of antibiotics for SIBO. And that's like the Western world's way of dealing with it, right? They just throw a bunch of antibiotics on it. And so obviously we're working like alternatively here. And, in certain cases, there might be a place for antibiotics, but I know like in your practice, you can use kind of a combination of multiple things. So how do you typically address, what is the protocol for SIBO and actually getting rid of it look like?
Yeah. So great question. And I'll say this really quick because I didn't mention this in the beginning, but some of the antibiotic use is also a common root cause for SIBO because it has caused a dysbiosis and an imbalance in there, right? And it sets you up for bullies on the playground, like we like to say. And so to your question, yes, in my practice at this point, I see folks who have been down this journey for quite some time. They've been to their GI, their doctor, they've been on rounds of rifaximin, which is the gold standard treatment for SIBO in the conventional world.
Yeah.
Is it effective? Yes, it can be very effective. Oftentimes what's missing though is that you may need more than one round.
Right.
The cool thing about rifaximin, as far as antibiotics go, is that it is localized. So it stays in the small intestines. It doesn't get systemic like many other antibiotics.
Yeah.
So in that case, quote unquote, it's a little safer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But in my practice, I'm not a prescriber. Obviously I do have folks that want to use rifaximin, so I help them get access to that with their doctor. But in my practice, I'm using a combination of herbals or homeopathics, really targeted nutrients so that we can help heal the gut lining. And rebuild the gut lining, right? So this is what's kind of missing in the conventional medicine approach, and why I totally rebel against it for SIBO. And they're not preparing your body beforehand, giving you education before you take the antibiotic.
Right.
There are steps that are really beneficial to you and your body prepare, in preparation for something like an antibiotic that you would want to take and do. And then there's also follow-up, right? They're kind of missing the boat on that. They just kind of write the prescription, send you on your way. The typical round is for 2 weeks. You may feel better for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, maybe even a few months if you're lucky. But it's likely that it's going to come back. A good 60 to 70% of folks who do SIBO treatment this way through their doctors with rifaximin for 2 weeks will have a relapse of SIBO in the next year or so.
That's a substantial percentage. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very common, and it's very unfortunate because it can be avoided.
Yeah.
That's part of what I do, right? I'm looking at the whole person. What else is at play here? I keep hitting the mic. Sorry. What else is at play here, right? So is it stress? Is it something in your environment that you're being exposed to? Is there a hypothyroid situation we need to address? All of these things are connected, like we said earlier, and it's important for you to address them and not just think about your small intestines. So that's kind of how I approach it in my practice, really a holistic approach.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you find that with your clients, because like 60 to 70% is, I mean, that's a substantial percentage of people that have like a relapse. Do you find that the people, like the clients you work with and people that do it this kind of alternative way, that they have a better success rate of just getting rid of it altogether?
Yeah, I do. And, I kind of take pride in that, as
You
part of what
should.
I do in my
Yeah.
practice, right? But it's been a long time coming. It's been an experiment and a journey even on on myself personally, but also just professionally in my practice, working with a variety of different clients and seeing what works best. And, I've kind of gotten it down to the nuts and bolts. I've created this kind of toolbox. Obviously, it's not a blanket protocol for everyone because everyone's different or they have a different kind of SIBO.
Right.
But oftentimes there are co-infections. Maybe there's something going on at their workplace. They are working in a moldy atmosphere. They're getting mold exposure,
Mm,
or they have a history of candida overgrowth,
right.
or maybe they traveled abroad and had parasites too. So it can be kind of complex. And those are mostly the folks that I see at this point in my practice, the ones that have kind of been going around in circles for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we kind of approach it really methodically, like let's peel away the layers of this onion so
Hmm.
that we can get to the root cause and really help your body heal itself, put it in a
Yeah.
place in a parasympathetic state
Hmm.
where it can start healing.
Yeah, yeah, always important. I thought it was interesting too that you said that a lot of people that have SIBO don't have like the typical GI symptoms, which can obviously make it pretty tricky. So for people that, and I'm sure a lot of people come to you, that's probably the case too, which is why they've been kind of spinning their wheels because they don't have like typical like GI symptoms. So for those people, like what is kind of what was kind of the what's what I'm looking for? Like the thing that clicked for them, I guess, was it just like working with you in like testing? Was there anything that clicked where as a doctor practitioner that's like, oh, maybe you have SIBO when they don't have the typical GI symptoms? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a good question. Well, for example, I have a SIBO quiz that I offer, right?
Mm,
It's free on my website. And you can go on there and there's all sorts of other types of symptoms that you might resonate with that aren't just digestive. So that might give you a clue that maybe you should look into that, right?
mm-hmm.
When you think about things like, for instance, the person who had migraines or the person who, keeps having to have a knee surgery because there's this inflammation there, or, whatever, it could be so random seeming, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you really have to kind of boil it down. I'm one of those people that believe that disease begins in the gut. It's just where everything is starting to be assimilated, where
Mm-hmm.
you're getting your nutrients for your cells and for the function of everything going on in your body. So for me, I'm looking through the lens of, well, if there's something up, maybe we should look at the gut,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And a lot of folks who come to me who have had these other random things but no digestive symptoms, they're coming to me kind of in a roundabout way. They've done
Mm-hmm.
their own research, they've been on Dr. Google
Right.
and all that sort of thing. So, people who are interested in learning and finding out things for themselves are usually those types that are attracted to my practice just
Mm-hmm.
because, we like to put our brains together and try to
Mm-hmm.
figure it out, right?
Find the puzzle pieces. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your go-to labs to test for SIBO?
Yeah, so that's a good question too. So right now I'm using the 3-hour lactulose breath test. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a variety of reasons why I use that, but I'll just kind of briefly say that there are other tests out there that are available. You can do a glucose test as well. There's some debate going on in the SIBO world about which one's more effective. They address different things for different parts of the intestinal tract, to tell you the truth. So, a glucose test is going to see something that's fermenting way at the top of the small intestines, whereas lactulose might go further down the system. And then there's also a new test that's been out for about a year. I kind of lose track of time, but maybe more than a year. It's called the Trio Smart, and it's the only one on the market right now that tests for all three types of gas.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'll be honest, I don't use that in my practice very much. One, because I'm not a prescriber and you have to be a prescriber to order it. But two, because I find that it doesn't always correlate with the person's symptoms. I'm looking at the person in front of me. So even though I'm looking at the data on a 3-hour lactulose breath test, or if they bring me a Trio Smart that they've already done, I'm using that as one part of the puzzle. Like you said, it's one data point, and I'm looking at the person who's presenting symptoms and what their environment is and their health history and putting that all together. So that's typically how I approach that. Sometimes I'll use stool tests if I'm curious about other things, like what is their immune function in the intestinal tract? Do they have viruses or candida or parasites? Again, that's a capture from the large bowel. So it's not necessarily telling you what's going on in the small bowel, but it can give you clues about what's going on overall.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. No, it did. It did. Yes, very much so. So I love that you pointed out, though, about that we were talking about antibiotics. I mean, I feel the same way. Well, and I think when, doctors prescribe the antibiotics and it's the only their only option they're giving you, right? I mean, so it's like, I think most people are like, oh, okay, I have to take antibiotics. I'm curious to know, do you ever have anyone, because I find this in my practice, and, of course, we're not medical doctors. So, we can't give medical advice, and I can't tell somebody to listen or not listen to the doctor,
Right.
But I'm curious to know if you have anybody who decides to like go against their doctor's wishes of doing the antibiotics and go just your way without the antibiotics, like even though their doctor told them they need the antibiotics.
Yeah. So this is I hear this a lot in my practice, Hope. So, and this is obviously not a judgment on any kind of doctor, right? So totally. I don't want to, I'm treading lightly here.
Yes. No, we know. Everybody listening knows. We know.
Yeah. So I'll have folks come to me and I'll explain to them and, really kind of educate them. Like, this is what this does, and this is why you may or may not want to do it. And I'm letting them choose, right? But lots of times what I hear are things like, well, my doctor told me to do that, but that doesn't really make sense, or that goes against what I'm trying to accomplish. And I will often have folks say, well, my doctor said he would give me a prescription, or she was going to give me a prescription for this, but I want to try it this way first. A lot of people who come to alternative functional type, practitioners are looking for alternatives already. Right. Having said that, though, I have a number of folks who will say, I want to try their Rifaximin first because I have it sitting here. I got it, my insurance covered it. And then, we may support or provide other alternatives or options to go along with the Rifaximin to help it be more effective. So that's also a way that we kind of navigate that. And on the topic of medications and antibiotics, I just wanted to say, I didn't mention this earlier, I'm swinging back around. Things like PPIs or other medications, birth control pills, even over-the-counter medications like ibuprofen, definitely a very common root cause for SIBO and chronic relapse. So I just wanted to put that in there as well.
Yeah, that is such a good point and such good information. I think we underestimate what, some of the seemingly, innocuous things like ibuprofen or antacids or whatever, like how that can affect the body and especially long term. I do think that's a great point to bring up. When I like that you mentioned the antibiotics too, that the antibiotics can be a cause, and that's what always blows my mind. And again, this isn't like a judging on people who decide to use antibiotics for this, but it always blows my mind because I had a lady who wanted to work together some time back, and she'd already been diagnosed with SIBO. And she'd have already had multiple bouts of it. Same, she'd done the antibiotics before and she was just going to do it. I'm like, but why wouldn't you try a different way this time? You've already done this and it's coming back. It blows my mind. Clearly this isn't giving you the outcome that we're looking for. And then it's and I'm pretty sure that she got it initially from antibiotics because she didn't have any of the symptoms until she had some kind of maybe a sinus infection or something. And she's, and so I'm like, okay, are we not putting the pieces together here?
Yeah, common. I see this a lot. I had a sinus infection. I had a root canal. I had a UTI. 3 months later, oh my gosh, I have gut
Yep.
issues.
Yep.
Yeah. So very, very common. And to your point, this is what I love about functional medicine. It's really about a personalized approach, but also just looking outside of the box, right? Really kind of expanding your mind
Yep.
to look at other ways. And that doesn't necessarily always discount what you did before. Maybe what you did before, you need to do it in a different way, right? Rethink it or support it, add something on top of that. So I think, like I said before, everyone is so different and highly unique. And everyone deserves to have a personalized approach to overcoming whatever it is they're dealing with. And I'll add too that often in my practice, there's so much more than just SIBO, right? Especially when it's chronic and it's relapse. We have to have deeper conversations about why your body is allowing you to continue this infection and tolerating it for some reason. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have with a client.
Yeah, it's so true. So for those listening who maybe they're resonating with some of the symptoms, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm bloated all the time. This has to be what's wrong with me. Like, what would you say are first steps for them to, kind of get to the root cause and kind of start to help things move in the right direction?
Yeah. So first I might kind of do a little bit of exploration, right? Like perhaps take one of these SIBO quizzes. Like I have one, Dr. Norala Jacobi has one on her website. She's the SIBO doctor, one of the people that I've studied with in the past. But, just kind of trying to tease out what is the likelihood that this is what I'm dealing with, right? And then approaching your doctor, of course, and, saying, this is what I'm thinking is going on. What do you think? Is it possible? Can I order a breath test and things like that? If you're running up against a situation where you don't have access to a test, that's where someone like me comes into play, whether it's me or some other functional practitioner, right? But you can request a SIBO breath test, and oftentimes we can just drop ship it straight to your house. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
And you can start there. There's a little bit of a prep diet that you would do in advance, but it's really quite simple. You're just breathing into a tube or a bag, and then you ship it back. It takes like a week and a half to get back. And it's quite affordable in terms of functional medicine testing. It's kind of a middle of the road pricing, but it's an easy test to do, and it can give you some information. Is it 100% definitive? No, but no test is, right? And it's just going to be one data point that's tied to all the other symptoms that you're reporting at the time.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Great tips, Jen. Okay, I do have another question that I like to ask everybody as we wrap up. But before I ask that, can you let everybody know where they can find out more about you? And I know you have the SIBO quiz on your website, so where people can find that and all the things.
Yeah. So the easiest way is just to go on my website. It's www.thesibocoach.com. And up at the top in the menu, there's a place for you to access the SIBO quiz, so you can take that for free. And also on my website, there's a pop-up there where you can put in your email in exchange for a free eating hygiene handout. I like to give this out because, to your point, what are the tips? What can we do right away to maybe help some of my symptoms, right? So eating hygiene is at the top of the list. It's kind of a boring topic, but it's super foundational to wellness in general. And that may help decrease some of your symptoms right away. And along with that handout is a video that you can also watch. It's like a 5-minute video of me just telling you a little bit more about eating and all of that and how to reduce your symptoms. So that's the best way to get in contact with me.
Perfect. And of course, I'll have links to all that in the show notes. So I'll go check it out and follow Jen on Instagram and check out the quiz and all that. Okay. The last question I want to ask you that I like to ask everybody, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Ooh, that's a juicy one. I think I would say allowing space for creativity. I think that's key. Depending on who you are, that might look like painting or drawing or sculpting, but it could also look like something, for instance, like gardening or rearranging your furniture or organizing your office, like just kind of getting your juices flowing, right? Maybe it's developing a new recipe because you want to have a dinner party and be social, right? I really believe that, and I see this help my clients be more successful as well. I really believe that when we create a space and extra time for us to be outside of our normal mental brain time that we're in all day long, we can find more joy and have more well-being, right? And so when we're in that place, this is when we can dial into what our life's purpose is, whether that looks like being a corporate mastermind or managing a home with children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything in between. I think being creative is the key to kind of connecting to your intuition and getting in your flow state of being the you that you want to be. So yeah, I think it's just getting outside of yourself a little bit and then letting loose and doing things that maybe you forgot that you love to do, or discovering something new that you love to do. Yeah.
I love that. That's so good, Jen. I love that. I cannot agree enough. I agree 100%. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jen, for this conversation and educating us all on SIBO. I think you're going to get some new hits on that SIBO quiz on your website, because I know there's a lot of people listening that are like, wait a minute, that's me. So thank you so much for sharing and just being here with us today.
Again, thank you so much for inviting me. I just love your energy and all the things that you're doing here, and I appreciate being a guest on your show.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.